All right, guys. 5.4 part 1. Like I said, I'm going to do 3 examples, 1 a day. Your quiz on Friday is not going to be super long. Probably going to be, 5, 6 questions, something like that. And it's going to be only over section 5.4. This is called the sum and difference formulas. Guys, what does the word sum mean? Addition. Correct. Very good. All right, so sum means addition. And what is difference? Subtraction. Okay, perfect. Now, you guys will be given these formulas, and you'll be given the unit circle. All right, if you were not given that stuff, this becomes much, much, much harder because you have to memorize it. But notice, we're talking about the 3 major trig functions: sine, cosine, and tangent. Everyone see that? And there's 2 formulas within each trig function. It's adding 2 angles together or subtracting them. Adding 2 angles together or subtracting them for sine, cosine, and tangent. Everybody see that? All right, over here, remind yourself, if you have an angle on the unit circle, right? You have your angle that's on the unit circle. You have an x and a y, the part of your coordinate. The x value is your cosine. The y value is your sine. And the tangent is taking the y, putting it over the x. Everybody remember that part. All right, so we're going to do 3 different types of questions. Today we're going to do the first type. You're going to evaluate the trig function and find the exact value. What does it mean if you are asked to find exact? No what? No decimals. Everybody in here could take your calculator and hit cosine 75, and it'll give you the decimal equivalent. We're not doing that. We're going to find the exact value. So it's probably going to be the square root of something over blah, 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 blah. So example number 1, this is how we do this. We're going to do both examples. I'm going to do the first one a couple different ways so you guys can see it. Now, if you look in these formulas, it says U and V. All that is to name 2 different angles. If you want to use A and B, use A and B. If you want to use a heart and a smiley face, I don't care. Just understand that U is one angle and V is the other. Does that make sense? You're using 2 different. Now, another thing I want to talk about. For all of the addition ones, does order matter? No. 2 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 2, yeah? For the subtraction one, does order matter? Yes, if you're subtracting and you want a positive number, the bigger number has to go first, correct? Okay, so this is how we do this, all right? We're going to take our time. We're going to go through it. The question says, what is the exact value of the cosine of 75 degrees? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is say, is 75 degrees on the unit circle? So go to your unit circle. Does anybody see 75? Okay, no. So what do we do here? Now is where we use our formulas. We are going to find 2 angles that we can add them together or subtract them to make the number 75. Anybody have an option? 45 and 30? Okay, I totally agree. What's another combo that you could add or subtract and get 75? 120, you said? 120 minus 45? Does that equal 75?
150 and 135.
Okay, 150 minus 135?
Yes. Oh, wait. No.
Okay, that's all right. Good thing. It's all right. You're all right. Think about another one with 135. You're okay. Think about another one with 135. What about 210 and 135? Does that give me 75? 75. Okay, so the first thing is you're going to identify 2 angles that you either add them together or subtract to get the angle you're looking for. I'm going to do this in 2 different ways so you guys can see it doesn't matter if I use the red pair that I have circled or the green pair as long as it makes 75. So let's do the red pair first. I'm going to do 45 plus 30. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to name angle U is my 45 degree. And I'm going to name angle V is my 30. Now, does it matter in this case whether I use 45 and 30 or 30 and 45? No, because I'm doing what with the two? Adding them. What is the ordered pair, guys, at 45 degrees? Square root of 2 over 2 and square root of 2 over 2, okay? What is the ordered pair at 30? Square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2. Okay. Anybody have any questions? And what are we doing to these two angles in order to get 75? We're adding them, okay. The last thing I think is a really good idea is in your ordered pair to go ahead and say which one's the sine, which one's the cosine. So do you guys agree with me that the first, your x value is your cosine, the y value is the sine? So this is cosine, and this is sine. Now, we have not really done anything that's been super difficult. All we did was find two angles on the unit circle that added to give me 75. And I wrote down the ordered pairs, right? So here's where the formulas come in. We want the cosine of 75. So look at your formulas. Are we adding the two together or subtracting? We're adding. So this is the formula that I'm going to use. Do you guys agree? So it's cosine u plus cosine v. So cosine of u times cosine of v. What's in the middle of that formula? Minus. Good. That one's tricky. Sine of u, right? Times the sine of v. Now, we haven't really had to think too much because I'm giving you the formulas. And now we just plug in. If I look at my first angle is u, right? What is the cosine of u? Square root of 2 over 2, okay. Times, what's the cosine of v? Square root of 3 over 2, okay. Minus, what is the sine of u? Square root of 2 over 2 times the sine of v. 1/2, okay. All we did was just take from our ordered pairs, plugged in the cosine where it went, the sine where it went. Everybody agree? Okay, now we're going to simplify. If I have a house times a house, it just becomes a bigger what? A bigger house, unless it was the same number. But what's the square root of 2 times the square root of 3? Square root of 6 over 2 times 2 is 4, okay? Minus, what's the square root of 2 times 1? Square root of 2 over 2 times 2 is 4. And the only thing you can do to simplify this, which is what I want you to do, they have the same denominator, right? So this would be the square root of 6 minus square root of 2 over 4. You cannot simplify because this radical 6 and radical 2, you can't combine those. They're not the same radical. And then you can't simplify numerator and denominator because one's underneath the radical and one's not. Does that make sense? You're always going to get some weirdo answer like this, unless every now and again you get 1/2 or something like that if you have a quadrant angle. But that is the exact value. If you put that in your calculator, if you said the square root of 6 minus the square root of 2 divided by 4, you'd get the same thing as if you hit cosine 75. So let's do this again, the same exact problem, but instead of using those two numbers, I want to use something where I subtracted. So Brian, what did you tell us? 120 and 45? Okay, we're going to do the same thing that Brian said, but we're going to use u is 120 and v is 45. In this case, why do I have to put the 120 first? Because you're subtracting. Okay, so what is the ordered pair, guys, at 120? What is it? Negative 1/2 and square root of 3 over 2. Okay, and then what is 45? Root 2 over 2? Root 2 over 2? Okay, again, I'm going to go ahead and remind myself, this is my cosine, this is my sine, this is my cosine, this is my sine. So now I have two angles that when I subtract them, it gives me 75. So which formula am I going to use in this case?
The cosine u.
Correct. So it's going to be cosine u times cosine of v. Now what goes in the middle? Plus sine of u times the sine of v. And again, you guys are going to be given the formulas. So now we're going to do the exact same thing. What is the cosine of your u angle, the first one? Negative 1/2, okay. And then what is the cosine of your second angle? Square root 2 over 2. Perfect. Plus, what's the sine of the first one? Root 3 over 2, good. And then what's the sign of the second one? All right, now we're going to simplify. What's a negative 1 times the square root of 2? Negative square root of 2, right? Over 4. 2 times 2 is 4. And then I have plus square root of 3 and square root of 2 is square root 6 over 4. You guys agree? And now I can rewrite it under the same denominator. Is this the same exact thing? Yeah. Look, your square root of 2 is negative in both cases, and the square root of 6 is positive in both cases. So it's not that you just have, there's only one combination. If you don't use the right combination, it's wrong. That's not the case. You guys can use a variety of combinations, and you'll see sometimes there's more options than others. Personally, I always try to use stuff in the first quadrant. Why would that be?
Because the numbers are small.
They're smaller, okay. What else? They're all positive, yeah. I don't have to worry about negatives and stuff like that. But the biggest thing, guys, is just paying attention. If you notice the cosine formula, if you're adding the cosines together inside the formula, the sign in the middle is negative. If you're subtracting, the sign in the middle is positive. That's the one that's a little tricky. Very easy to make a mistake on that. So just make sure you're paying attention. So let's look at the next one, and then we're done. The next one says the sine of pi over 12. Well, first thing you're going to do is look on the unit circle. Is pi over 12 there? No. The chances of me giving you something on the unit circle, slim to none. All right, so pi over 12. Well, some of you are like, I don't know what pi over 12 is. Can we figure out what pi over 12 is in degrees?
Yeah.
Sure. How do I do that? 180 over pi, right? So your pi's cancel. What's 180 divided by 12?
15.
God bless you, 15. So what we're really looking for is the sine of 15 degrees. Well, guys, 15, I have a lot of options, don't I? How can I make 15? 315, I like it, minus 300. What else? 45 minus 30. What else? 60 minus 45?
45 minus 30.
Yep. What about 115 minus 135? Do you guys see how there's, like, some are going to lend themselves to, look, 210 and 225, right? I'm going to do the first thing. Gabby, you said 315 and 300, right? Okay, so I'm going to say, all right, we're doing 315, that's going to be my u, minus 300. Why did I put 315 first? Because we're subtracting, right? So the bigger one needs to go. So what is the ordered pair at 315? Square root 2 over 2 and negative square root 2 over 2. Perfect. And what's 300?
1/2,
Perfect. All right, so now we know the two angles we're going to use. We know what trig function they're asking for, so I go to my formulas. What am I looking for? Sine, cosine, or tangent? Sine. And then what am I doing to the two angles that I found? Subtracting. So this formula is sine u times cosine v. I'll write that down. It's sine u times cosine of v minus, what is it? Cosine u sine v? Right? Cosine of u times the sine of v. Again, if you want to change it to x's and y's, a's and b's, happy faces and hearts, I don't care. It does not matter to me. Just as long as you denote there's two different angles. And now, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, let me remind myself, this is my cosine, this is my sine, this is my cosine, this is my sine. Anything I can do to make sure I don't make silly mistakes. And now we just fill in. What is the sine of u? Negative square root of 2 over 2. Perfect. What is the cosine of v?
Negative square root 3 over 2.
Cosine.
1/2.
1/2, yep. Minus, what's the cosine of u? Square root of 2 over 2 times the sine of v. Negative root 3 over 2. Perfect. Take a second. Take a second just to make sure we don't make silly mistakes. It happens all the time. So now I'm like, all right, so multiply the numerators. Negative root 2 times 1 is just negative square root of 2. And what is 2 times 2? 4. Minus, what's root 2 and negative root 3, it's negative square root of 6, right? Over 4. Can I simplify this? Two different things I can do. What are they? Distribute the negative. So minus the negative is going to give me a what? Positive. Good. And then I can write it over one denominator. Now, if you chose a different set of ordered pairs, your answer might look a little different, but however you write it, your negative root 2 should be negative, root 6 should be positive, and it's over 4. Depending upon which you chose, it might be in a different order, but that should be how it comes out. Does that make sense? It's not incredibly difficult. You just have to take your time. You got to pay attention to signs and that sort of a thing, but it's not crazy hard. We good? Okay.